for all those who are unable to join us live. We do have a good following of individuals watching our content after the event as well. Just so you know, they are located on our website. With that, I have a few housekeeping items, and then I will hand off the panel to our wonderful moderator and panelists today. Just so you all know, we have a few other upcoming webinars we hope you'll consider joining us for. A Teach CTE first in the series of monthly webinars on January 18th, then a February 16th webinar on engaging high quality instruction, and a part 3 on engaging high quality instruction in April. So you can register for these events here. With that, I also want to mention to anyone who might be a non-member on here that ACT is the largest national education association for CTE. We hope you'll consider joining us as a member today. So you can find that information on this link. With that, I am going to introduce our moderator and panelists today that we are so grateful for their time and expertise. I'm going to hand it off to our moderator, Eva. Eva serves as the CTE Equity Specialist in the Workforce Development Unit at Minnesota State. Her leadership role includes partnerships with Minnesota's Department of Education, other state agencies, as well as academic and student affairs to provide professional development, technical assistance, or resources that support local CTE consortia in serving special populations. The most satisfying work includes the establishment of the Equity Capacity Grant Program and building relationships with internal and external partners through various joint initiatives that serve diverse populations. Her most recent service includes an active role in the Minnesota State Academic Equity Committee, Minnesota STEM Network Leadership Team, and the IAD Advisory Committee. Eva holds a BS from California State University, Long Beach, and an MS from Grambling State University in Developmental Education. Eva, thank you so much for all your work to put together this panel today, and I will hand it off to you.
Good morning, everyone. Something that I like to make sure that people are aware of is my connection with services to those who are incarcerated or transitioning out of incarceration, as well as those who are just as involved. Is we have some leadership funding that is set aside for those services. And that's one of the areas that I coordinate, along with sharing of best practices that our grantees provide to each other in that space. So I just want to start off this journey by asking you to reflect on a question, and feel free if you want to answer in the chat, you do not have to. But my question to you, and starting off this conversation, is think about a time when you have felt vulnerable in your life, whether it's during your career, your personal life, because I know that we have all been in this space. And it's definitely a new awareness for me, because the youth that I've worked with, I didn't work with them and know them on a daily basis. And there are some things that we share in similarity about our experiences, and there are very different levels of that experience in surveying those populations. And I want you to think about that, because those who have been incarcerated or transitioning out of incarceration or have been just as involved in some way are vulnerable. So think about that in your life and what that means to you. And you can share that, your thoughts, if you want to, amongst each other in this chat. I also want to say that it's a paradigm shift for me in my own personal story of understanding the adversity and the challenges of those that I was serving, and hearing their stories, which is incredibly important, and understanding their perspectives. But at the same time, it was a wonderful opportunity of discovery and motivation, just like those who have been served within our correctional facilities. So the last comment I want to make that's leading to our discussion is being vulnerable is also about a lack of control and trust, for very good reason. Not having those supportive environments, and also unfortunately being marginalized by others, whether it's conscious or unconscious, whether it's with malice or just implicit biased perspective that we have because of our own limited experiences or limited scope of information. So as we lead this discussion today about reclaiming our humanity, it's also about serving others and respecting their perspectives. And so we have some leaders with us today, and there are many of you in the audience who are also leaders as well. And I want to introduce them before we get started. So we have Nate Johnson. Nate Johnson is a former prosecuting attorney, a veteran, and a lifelong lover of literature and creative writing. He is the founder of Free Writers. And outside of leading free writers classes for current inmates with an interest and passion for writing, Nate also leads community-based writing groups for former inmates and other writers. He regularly participates in writing workshops through the Loft Literary Center and the University of Minnesota. Nate received his BA from the University of St. Thomas, a JD from the University of Iowa, and is currently enrolled in a graduate nonprofit through the Hubert Humphrey School of Public Affairs. Dustin Burke serves as the program director at the West Central Regional Juvenile Center and supervises the secure residential and independent living programs. He has worked at the facility in various roles since 2012 and is a graduate of Minnesota State University, Moorhead. Angela DeHart is a retired secondary teacher turned founder and CEO of STEM Impressionist Program. During her 12-year teaching career, she was a middle school FACS teacher turned STEM teacher. I love that connection because we forget about STEM in FACS. She holds a BS in sociology from the College of Wooster and an MS in organizational development and effectiveness from Johns Hopkins University. Ms. DeHart's innovative nature, her steadfast dedication to continuous learning, and her passion for STEM has inspired the creation of a number of STEM opportunities for students. A girls' coding club, a week of student-directed activities promoting the hour of code, and the creation of a STEM group called the STEM Impressionists. On a personal basis, her activities include being a member of MIT's LCL facilitator team, participating in TED Talk, and an expert for the 2021 release, The Secret of Home Economics. She is a recipient of the 2021 NCWIT National AIC Educator Award. And so I want to welcome everybody to the panel. I certainly appreciate your time and your wisdom and your expertise. Again, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to add them into the chat. We will try and capture those as we move along, not necessarily waiting to the end. So I want to welcome you to extend your comments. You know, we had a rich conversation in terms of getting to know a little bit more about each other. And it's been interesting having a conversation with Megan as well, because we don't necessarily talk about how we serve those who are incarcerated, again, those who are transitioning or justice involved, and what kinds of programming that we provide for them for current technical education. So I want to lead off the discussion about why this matters. What impact do we have on those individuals as CTE professionals? And Angela, if you don't mind starting off that conversation about why this matters, then please feel free. Anyone, Nate, Justin, please. Sorry, not Justin, Dustin, please feel free to join in, and I can add some comments as well. We can't hear you, Angela.
Try that. Does that work?
I hear you. I hear you and see you. Welcome.
No problems. There you go. Always. Okay. I'm super glad to be here. And why do I think it matters? Right? Because there's so many different ways for people to be able to have a successful life. That, you know, as an educator, former educator, but I'm still teaching. I feel that it's important for me as a CTE person is the hands-on, the practical nature of what we do is really important in today's society, where, you know, we spend a lot of time sometimes on a phone And it's like, we don't talk to people. I mean, you're walking down the hall, like I was just at the spa this morning, and people don't even look up anymore, right? So we don't even see each other. So I think that we bring, the past into the present, in which there can be wonderful interactions between those opportunities for people, for kids, and for us, because I'm CT all the way. I like what I do, and it inspires me. And I know that while we've been in COVID, one of the things that people have done is cook, because they're like, what are we gonna do? And so they ran out of flour at the store. Thank you. Just saying that there's plenty of opportunity for people to find their passion by using their hands and exploring wonderful things that are embodied in CTE and all the levels of CTE, period. Go for it, guys. I'm done.
I did it again. You mentioned, Angela, about passion, and Nate and Dustin, the work that you do is really around trying to capture that passion, but also helping increase those skills for those transitions and being on your own and following your own life and what those individuals want to do. And so, Nate, can you tell us, in the work that you do, one, tell us a little bit about free riders, but also tell us what some of the biggest challenges are that you notice in supporting justice involved individuals that you have observed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would be honored to do that. And thanks for having me here, Eva. And I want to thank everybody else for participating, Angela and Dustin and Megan and everybody who's watching. What we do at Free Writers is we bring a particular type of creative writing practice into county jails specifically. And the way it works is that we essentially do timed 5-minute bursts of creative writing, like up against the clock, using a random writing prompt. And then anybody wants to read out loud what they've written is invited to do that. And you talked about vulnerability, Eva, a moment earlier. I'm sure that the term empathy is going to come up once in a while in our webinar today. And what I've found as the value of supporting incarcerated people and people with a criminal record is that a lot of them, having been kicked around in the system and having been kicked around before they got into the system, has made them kind of lose the freedom to be vulnerable and to talk about who they really are and what they really want. And then when they get out of jail or prison, society seems even less willing to let them express who they are and what they want. And so I think that one of the biggest challenges that we all have in supporting justice-involved individuals is that society tends to think that these folks are inherently bad, that if they're locked up, they must be monsters to one degree or another. And any of us who have family or friends, or any of us who ourselves have had problems where we've run up against the justice system, we just know that that isn't true, that these people have been severely disadvantaged, and that they have a lot to contribute to the social and public policy problems that we deal with as a society. And so I think it's important that we all stay involved in helping these folks out.
Absolutely. Dustin, you work with youth in particular. And are there any thoughts that you have that you would like to share about the value and also what some of the challenges are?
Yeah, I want to thank you guys for letting me be here and talk about this topic too, because it is really important. Some of the things I see with the population that I work with and the adult population in corrections as well is that I think a lot of people kind of cast them aside and feel that there's no intrinsic value from a lot of these individuals, when realistically, most of these people have gotten themselves into bad situations and made some poor choices, but there's a lot of value to them. Their life has meaning. They have a lot of skills and a lot of talents that are really untapped. And because of that, I think that like I said, some people just kind of forget that this population exists and they don't reach out to them. And that's a problem when we have so many resources that we can provide to them, help give them skills, help expand on their talents, give them a purpose, something that they feel like they can contribute to society. And it's a mutually beneficial thing because we're teaching people that, like I said, have so much intrinsic value that hasn't been realized yet or tapped yet. They can learn a skill that they can contribute to society, where we have a labor shortage over the last 2 years with the pandemic. And we have so many people that can contribute to that. And once we have someone that's contributing to that, at the same time, they're getting self-worth and they're doing something to get themselves back on the right path so they avoid being incarcerated again. They're going down those paths, and we can stop that pipeline that they've gotten themselves into, because we provide them with the resources and they get invested, and there's so much that can really grow out of that. And I think people kind of forget about that because once people get incarcerated, a lot of times people will forget about them or think, well, we don't have to worry about them anymore, when really there's so much that we can build on with these people that have so much more to offer than the offense that got them put into the position that they're in.
Absolutely. And I think to add to that, helping them to increase their network and their capital about what those resources are that can help them to move forward and to make those changes that they want in their life based upon their perspective and their view of their life and where they want to go, and not put judgment on that, and provide that support and that trust and building those relationships is absolutely essential. And when I think about that, we talked a bit about perceptions and attitudes already within this conversation. And I'm thinking, as a CT educator, one of the questions we talked about is different types of policies and practices that really become barriers to participating in these particular opportunities that our youth and our adults who are incarcerated or transitioning out of incarceration create problems for them. So Angela, one of the questions we talked about was about some of those challenges when it comes to policy and practices. I just wanted to know if you had any other comments that you'd like to share about that as well.
Most definitely. I actually did a little bit of research this morning because I wanted to make sure that I could actually provide some specifics, which is like, not running around in my head. And so school enrollment became majority minority in the 2013-14 school year. And that matters because the last time they took that I could find, in 17-18, white women, make up 76% of all teachers in public and private schools. That is a lot because unfortunately, one of the things that I experience as a teacher is walking out in the hall to make copies, for the umpteenth time to get ready for my next class. And there would be students in the hallway like daily because they were thrown out of the classroom. But you can't learn if you're not in the classroom. It's not possible. And so there are some things like that happen because I think that people don't understand some cultural issues that are going on. And so then children are bearing the brunt because they're literally removed from the classroom, which removes them and changes the trajectory of their lives on a serious level. That is a problem. The other thing, from the school perspective, like before they ever get into the system, which is where we don't want them to be, is the fact that Black students and other students of color are significantly suspended. So if you get suspended, you have a much higher rate of dropout. And Black students lost 103 days per 100 students enrolled versus white students only losing 21 days. And this is days of learning where they're not in school and they can't learn. And so this kind of continues to perpetuate cycles that are very difficult to break. And then that doesn't even talk about, like, you know, teen pregnancy and the issues that come with that, or what happens when you don't have minority teachers in schools at a much higher level, since we are now majority minority. All of these factors in and of themselves are not the issue, but as a collective unit are like a driving force that makes it difficult for children to redirect their lives, and to have somebody at school help them in that process.
And I just want to acknowledge in the chat that there were some resources that Angela shared. Jeff Henderson was the keynote speaker at ACTE some time ago. And it was by him telling his story. And obviously someone built a relationship with him and others to share with them these opportunities that changed the trajectory, can't say that this morning, of their lives. And the sooner we do that and build those relationships, that really helps our students in terms of changing the narrative of their story and thinking about what they can do. Nate, you unmuted, you had a comment.
Yes, I do. I just want to acknowledge what Angela just spoke about and share a little bit of my experience along these lines. So the population that I work with in the county jail system here in Minneapolis and in some rural jurisdictions is what I've found is that many of the folks that I write with were born into poverty and born into probably a single parent situation, and maybe there was some addiction that the parents were dealing with. Very often there's institutional racism that the parent and the children are dealing with. And so then these young people in many cases have to start earning their own money by age 10 or 12. And if you come from a poor neighborhood and you need to make some quick cash, there aren't that many options other than kind of getting involved in things that are going to get you in trouble. And so if you do that really out of necessity, and you are good at it, you know, if you're a hardworking, industrious young person, chances are that career choice, for lack of a better term, is going to keep you out of school so that you can't really run into people like Angela, who might be able to tell you that you're really talented and you've got lots of options in other career pathways. And so if we don't, I think, pay special attention to folks who either are or were involved in the justice system, we take people whose odds were already very long just in terms of the situations that they were born into, and we make them that much longer. And I also want to say that, you know, I wish that society and the education community and the community of employers would look at justice involved individuals as a rich talent pool. Because, you know, if you think about if you're in charge of hiring and you have two applicants and one of them had everything handed to them in life and the other one had to scrap and strive, you know, you might think that the second applicant is more resourceful and might be a better leader someday. And so I really think that lots of the people that we're trying to help could be much better equipped to be leaders and thinkers in society than the people that we usually tap to do those things.
And actually, before I asked Dustin a question, I want to feed off of a comment that was shared in the chat by Karen Houston about managing the program as Cisco Ambassadors for Change. It leads into the first polling question, actually. And the question that I wanted to ask is, what's the current participation that or knowledge that you have about CTE program in the prisons, jails, and juvenile facilities? And Megan, are you able to pull up that poll?
The level of interest one? Sorry, Ava.
That's okay. It's the first poll about current participation and knowledge of CTE programming in jails facilities. That would have been, actually, you may have been marked. There you go.
So I
Right.
had them combined, but
Okay.
we'll be able to see both of them.
Mhm. Right. And as people are responding to the poll, Dustin, I know that you've had some partnerships with other facilities. I was trying to think of one in particular that was helping you build some additions to your current curriculum. Did you have any comments that you wanted to share about some of the partnerships you have? Because I think it speaks toward the second polling question about level of interest and knowledge where people are participating.
Yeah, I've tried to be pretty progressive with branching out to different agencies that we can utilize in the community and around the state of Minnesota to not only make our transition independent living skill program more robust, but at the same time provide with some resources to secondary options or work release programs, those type of things. We actually worked with a program in Duluth I cannot remember the name of their agency off the top of my head
I
right
think
now.
Career Solutions. Is it Career Solutions?
No, I can't think
one?
what I just cannot think what the name was. But we worked with them. We had an independent living skills program, and we kind of worked with them because they had already done something through a grant that was successful, that they were going into different facilities to teach youth, whereas we were implementing something for our own staff to work with youth on. And that would be anything from applying for jobs, applying for college, getting local assistance, those kind of things. And at the same time, I have worked with Lakes Country Service Cooperative to help get grant funding to teach some of our staff to use the Myers-Briggs and strong interest inventory assessments. And so with that, we're able to provide some information to youth about possible career options and give them pathways as to how they can go down that route. We've worked with Minnesota State Community and Technical College to come in here and provide some facilitation of those groups, as well as getting some of our kids off site to go into some of the courses there. And building off the question, one of the difficulties that we have, and one of the challenges that I have with the population that I work with, is that I do work in a secure residential facility. And the reason that these youth are here, it's not because that they have small, minor, petty offenses. They've been through the system quite a bit. And they've committed some pretty significant offenses. And so while we do try to provide them with opportunities for CTE opportunities, we also have to think about public safety as well. And we can't do a lot of things on site. We can do some things on site, but a lot of the things that are really beneficial to do have to take place in the community. And so to get the youth into the community, I also have to consider public safety and determine if the youth are ready to do that. If we give them access to electronics, can we make sure that they're accessing what they need to access and not communicating with people they shouldn't be communicating. And so it's really a balancing act between how you do that safely and how you do it safely while also getting the resources in, getting the different information to the youth at the same time. So that's been one of the challenges that we've faced.
Absolutely. And you mentioned community a lot. I think it's important that we continue to build our own networks and social capital and get to know our communities, because they are rich with support and information and training, even lots of different opportunities they provide. And in order to connect with our community, those individuals that we serve or wish to serve, it's important to know what the community offers, important to know those individuals and what their interests are, what their challenges, what their fears are. I mean, we need to share our stories, because we can't support and help if we don't understand perspectives and why people feel and think the way they do. So I want to acknowledge and appreciate what you said and what everyone has said so far. And actually, let's take a look at the poll real quick. So, and this did not surprise me, there's a lot of interest about connecting with others. And I think there's been some discussion and suggestions already from our panelists about Those community connections are important. Really understanding policies and practices that might create barriers, even if it's just asking the question and challenging what those practices are, and having conversations with individuals about how this may impact them in terms of their own participation in these programs and services that are being provided. Please feel free, for those of you in the audience who are involved in different types of programming with these individuals, please make sure that you're sharing that information within the chat, and we'll try and find a way to capture those. Megan, I think you mentioned someone's hand was up, and I think there's something in the Q&A section.
Yep. So the Q&A, there's a question from Adrian Graham. And the question is, what do you estimate as the amount of CTE justice involved individuals have had before they became incarcerated or justice involved? I can put it in the chat too, so everybody can sort of see it.
And so if I understand the question, just to make sure, Adrian, we're on the same page, are you referring to involvement within CTE by those individuals before they became incarcerated or justice involved? Just let me know if I'm understanding your question. Yes, that's right. Okay. And that probably varies. I can tell you a story for me, and just I'll have you jump in. I know that having a conversation with someone about students in a particular alternative learning center, they have no opportunities for career and technical education. And it's very clear in our conversation who's actually in that ALC. And that begs the question for me about if these opportunities are offered to students, no matter what school they're involved in, including homeschool, what would that look like as far as students keeping them from being involved in the justice system? It's just I'm just saying, asking a question. Dustin, you had a comment.
Yeah, the population that I work with, it's virtually none. A lot of times they don't even think about it. They look at what their parents have done or what kind of lives their parents have lived, and a lot of times they don't think anything beyond that. They think that's all that they can attain. And realistically, it's because they haven't, a lot of them don't involve themselves in school a lot. Building on what Nate said, a lot of them get out of school because they need to support themselves, they need to support their families. They don't have someone there backing them up and ensuring that they stay in school. And so a lot of the kids that I work with, they didn't even think that this was a possibility. They didn't think that they had these options. And it's just something that's basically completely new to them. So virtually none.
And Megan, was there another question? I thought there was something in the chat where someone's hand was up.
I think it was just an accident. So,
Okay.
Angela, were you going to say something?
Yes, because I wanted, before we moved on to anything else, I just wanted to say that, I know it's cliche that education like really makes a difference and can transform your life. And we kind of say that, but it really is true. And I don't think it matters who you are. I mean, I think it helps everybody. And the mentoring that I have done over the last 8 years has just been a testimony to how powerful that is, really, regardless of your life circumstance. But I believe that the students that I'm helping that are from a Title I school, right? And so everybody's not like, running around with lots of money. They weren't in trouble to go to jail, but that doesn't mean, right, that they weren't going to do better, right? There's no guarantee you're going to do better than your parents nowadays anyway, because the world is changing. And so, but now I know that I changed the trajectory of their lives. And as a teacher, that was my goal. And more importantly, they know the value of giving back to others to pay it forward for other people. And so I think it's really inherently important that peer-to-peer training is a part of kind of any solution, because kids can bond at levels that we're not in that place, but that's okay. They got it. And that's important in their networking, because when I'm like pushing up daisies, they're going to be there. to help each other, and that is important.
I just thought I'd add to that when I think about the youth that I worked with at the Boys and Girls Clubs in Minneapolis and to some extent St. Paul. They had never left their community. So they had no idea what college was like. And so in the college prep program that we had, I was intentional about talking to them and building a relationship instead of just saying, hey, come join this program. And they have no idea what it is. And I don't even know if they're interested. We built a relationship. I took them on different field trips and I told them, okay, we're not going to look at a bunch of buildings. You're going to learn about campus life and all the opportunities and things that are offered. You already know what a classroom looks like. You've been in classrooms, and I wanted to expose them to a bunch of different things that they had never seen before, let alone being in Winona or Moorhead and all these different places they had never been. And so just those experiences of seeing the world around them and that there's more than just their 3-block radius made a huge difference. And it did for me because I didn't have the opportunity to go on field trips for college visits. We were left to figure it out all by ourselves. And so it was a learning opportunity for them, for me. We had conversations so they can kind of reflect and think about those things. And then we move forward about, let's talk about what you really liked and start talking about careers and helping them to create their own networks. And that was so impactful because I can think of those students who moved on to college, or they moved on to appreciate college and definitely were pushing their friends to think about other opportunities. So I really appreciate that question. And I think, let's see.
Eva, can I add something to that?
Yes, Nate.
Thank you for that comment. I come from a mostly white rural town, working class town, and so there are a lot of ways in which I cannot relate with my fellow writers in the jail. But one thing that I do often have in common with them is that I was a bad K-12 student because I couldn't sit still. And I wasn't particularly interested in a lot of what I was being compelled to learn and study. And I just thought that I was not a school, not a book, like that this type of career and this type of education just wasn't accessible to me. But through athletics, I made it to college. And then I found out that I was just as intelligent as a lot of the kids who were able to sit still and get all their homework done. And so I think, like, in addition to having, to hoping that kids from disadvantaged backgrounds get to geographically explore, I also think it's great if we can help them get to the point where they can pick the classes that they take, and they can get a break between classes where they can take a walk, where they can, just not have to sit there for 8-9 hours a day, because I think a lot of them are highly intelligent, but they felt just like I did that they were dumb until they might make it into a post-secondary environment.
Okay, you make a point when you talk about take a break, because after middle school, it's class after class. There is no such thing as recess. And like, well, we need to have some breaks so people can just kind of congregate and have some reflection time or whatever it is they need to do, because all of that is really important. It's important to growth of yourself, your mind, just time to reflect and think and to sometimes de-stress. Yes, play is powerful. I agree. I think one of the other questions that I wanted to ask is about going back to networks. I don't know if anyone else in the chat had shared information about the work that they do. Actually, Adrian, you mentioned about DECA. So that goes back to the question, and people can answer this in the chat, about what connections do you have with different organizations that provide these different hands-on activities? We know about the CT student organizations, but outside of the school, when I continue to think about youth, since we've talked a lot about youth. If anyone wants to share any other kinds of student organizations, I mentioned Boys and Girls Club, we mentioned DECA. If you'd like to share some of those ideas about other student organizations, leadership programs, something to kind of help engage students. STEM, apprenticeship, yes. Not sure about the apprenticeship programs that you have in different states. I think Minnesota, the youth apprenticeship program is being kind of redesigned and being redeveloped. But that apprenticeship is such a wonderful opportunity for people to get hands-on, to learn about different careers. But the interesting thing is there's always the opportunity to make the connection and the leap from, if you want to go to an apprenticeship, you really like being engaged in those college courses. How else can I be engaged at the college level and take the next step if that's something? And sometimes I think we need to intentionally, not handhold, but intentionally guide people to what those different opportunities are, and to make some real connections with real people so that they can talk and build relationships and learn about what those opportunities are. And there, yes, Angela.
At one of my schools, they were redoing it, right? The building was crazy old. It was way time. And so as I'm watching them, I'm just watching them do their job, right? There were women. I'm like, yeah, okay. So I'm like, it's good to see women in construction. It's very good paying. And in Virginia, they never stop building something. So you'll be employed forever. And I happened to walk into a restaurant because I was hungry. And I talked to this guy, and he was then talking to the person behind the counter. And this is the second time he's been in. And I'm like, ooh, this must be good food because I'd never been here before. So then he and I struck up a conversation. And he worked as a journeyman. And then he gave kind of his path, because I was like, hey, I'm a TT, I'm a teacher, blah, blah, blah. And we kept talking. And then I said, so how are you going to take care of your retirement? Because, when you're 50 and you're 60 and you out there, hitting a hammer, it's cold out there. And he said, well, my father then went to college, and then now he's a manager. And I thought, can you please come talk to my children? And the reason I'm saying this is because I just talk to people. People are amazing. And there's so many stories that you would never hear if you just don't strike up some weird conversation with a person you've never met before. And then I have always, like, if they've got a really good story, I invite them into my classroom. Like, granted, I know I don't know these people all that well, but I make an assessment and I take a chance. And it has been overwhelmingly wonderful to have a guest speaker series where kids get to actually talk to real people, right? And then they get to personally, like, they're right there. I know it's COVID time, sorry. Zoom, I do it on Zoom. Don't let that stop you. I never let it stop me. Get them in there. And the kids are like, really? And they start asking questions. And these kids who you never hear from or who are challenging are like asking the most questions. It's not all about college. If you don't want to go to college, honey, it's okay. There are jobs out there that are helpful to you that you can get certifications for, because we live in the 21st century. Some of them you can get online. Honey, you got options. Let's talk about this, because that's what this is all about. That's what I believe.
Right? And it starts the conversation about what their opportunities are and not limiting them, not discouraging them, but having the conversation about what their options are and helping them to choose their own path. And so, in some final thoughts, we talked about I wanted to just emphasize the title of this is about reclaiming humanity. And it's about making that transformation and supporting others and their values, what's important to them, helping them to explore, helping them to build relationships with us, with others. It's not just about compliance of the law or statutes or collection of numbers to satisfy a funding award or some kind of a report. So that humanity is so much more than just offering outreach opportunities and flyers, but it's how are we really digging in to gain the trust and learn about those individuals that we want to serve. And I just wanted to say that, I mentioned this once before, that there was a quote that came up. It was just on my teeth. And I will forever remember it because it was so simple and to the point. It was about lift people up to their potential, to their higher selves. And who would imagine that that simple wisdom would be on a little tag of a tea bag? But I cherish it and remember it because that's really the essence of humanity and how we want to be treated, how we should be treating our youth, our adults, and anyone, whether they're special needs, English learners, all of us require that. And we need that in order to thrive and to be able to give back. And so we've got a couple of comments in the chat. I just wanted to make sure to share those. Clarence was saying the apprenticeship programs need to be boosted more across the board from banking to construction, right? Because some of the apprenticeships, I'm not as familiar anymore with working with apprenticeship programs, but there are probably quite the limitation in terms of what's being offered. I don't know if anybody has any other comments about apprenticeship programs because they're thriving in some states and not thriving as well in others. And I appreciate that. Angela?
I was getting my car fixed. I'm telling you, I talk to anybody. And so this kid is driving me home, right? Because they're going to keep my car. Yeah, you all know what that looks like. And so on the way home, he says that he went to the school where I taught. I don't remember this kid. I mean, there's a couple, so it's understandable. And so then we start chatting, and he wanted to be a pharmacist, and he missed the window because there's a pharmacy opportunity right at the school to get a head start, and he missed it. And he's been working at this like drive people home for 2 years. I'm like, oh, so I went into my little lecture mode, you know how I am. And so I said, no. You just got to get in there. Like, okay, you missed it. I am sorry. That shouldn't have happened. But like, there's other opportunities. So anyway, when I saw him again, he said, he came up to me at the counter and he said, this is my last day. I went into CVS or one of the pharmacies and they had a training program and I signed up.
Awesome.
That's what it takes. Like, so it's not too late. There's still opportunities. You just got to persist. Persistence is so important to success. And these kids give up too easily. We have to remind them that persistence matters.
And I think that's where the skills, Dustin, from some of the programming that you have is to help them build up that confidence and that persistence and just helping them with the process of trying to discover their own way. And Nate, I just a last thought. I know that writing is that space where they can express themselves, but I know that you're also trying to help them to make the connection between St. Paul College or any other institution where they can continue to move on, and they're building up this confidence and using these writing skills in a way that'll kind of help them to enter the door of those colleges. So I appreciate what you're doing, what all of you are doing as well. Any last comments from you, Megan? Because I just want to thank everyone for their time.
Ava, there was one other question. Did we hit on, I put it in the chat from Elizabeth Collins on has ACT connected the state directors of corrections in each state? I used to work in CTE at MD and now work at the Michigan Department of Corrections, but see real value in ACT connecting with state corrections departments directly, as it is true in my state that offered education is under the MDOC and not MDE, which holds CT. Yeah, I don't believe we do that, Elizabeth. I think that's a great question, and I will take it back to our senior staff for a suggestion from this webinar today. So thank you for the suggestion. And there's still comments coming in the chat with great ideas of things people are doing and things going on in each state. So this is wonderful information for everyone's geographic locations. So we appreciate all these comments. It would be wonderful for teachers who teach students in prisons to connect with teachers in civilian K-12. Offer us a tour to come with you. I would. What a great idea. I love that last one.
Can I say thing about that last comment. I really appreciate that comment, and I'd like to put in a plug for some of the people we have on the call, working with the jail community specifically, because I know that when I was trying to get started with this writing program, I talked to some prison officials. You know, a lot of us in society, I mean, I know that the 130 people in this meeting right now probably do know how to distinguish between jails and prisons, but a lot of people in the education community and just in the community at large do not distinguish. And so what I found is that there was quite a lot of programming, career and technical and otherwise, in the prisons, but that there isn't much other than Bible study and 12-step meetings in the jails. And people tend not to go to the jails to work because they think correctly that the turnover is much greater among the jail community. So if you wanted to try to teach, you know, a semester-long course, it's harder to do that among jail inmates. But we've got somebody in the meeting from Dakota County in Minnesota, and they're one of the exceptions. I know that they figured out a way to do like 2-credit courses, community college courses in the jail. And here in Minneapolis, the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office tried to get K through 12 Minneapolis public school teachers to come in and do some of this work in the jails, but they were afraid. You know, they just thought, I don't know how it's going to be in there, and it might be dangerous, and why would I want to give up, you know, my comfortable life? And I think that they have it exactly wrong, because in my experience in the downtown Minneapolis County Jail, I've never felt safer, because the students are the quads or the cell blocks that I work with are all students who are eligible to do programming, which means they're pretty well, you know, they're sober, they've got their mental health somewhat tended to, and so I've never felt unsafe. And furthermore, they all really want to be in the classroom, you know, and so whether you're a secondary or post-secondary educator, you might have students that are compelled to be there, and you have to sort of fight with them to keep them engaged. And even in post-secondary, they may not know yet what they want to do, so it may be hard to get them to pay attention. But every single writing student that I've had in a county jail environment has been eager to learn. And so I think that it's actually a pretty attractive place to work, whereas I think that the public perception is the opposite of that.
Yeah, I just want to touch on that too. I think it would be so beneficial and helpful to build these relationships and to get people resources if we could get more agencies to come into the facilities and to come and see the people that they would be working with, because I think their perceptions are so skewed, or they just don't have an idea of who is actually there. You get sensationalism by the media on every single person that is in a correctional facility, when in reality you have a lot of people that really want to better themselves, and they have desire to achieve something. They've just been left behind. And when you can get some people in there that have the resources or do have the programs, and they actually get into the environment in which those individuals are living, you get to meet them. I think that really helps to foster that relationship, because they get some more buy-in, they get some more investment, because they actually were able to see who they'd be working with and see who would be able to take advantage of these opportunities and maybe change some perception a little bit.
And actually, to build on that, I was thinking about a particular organization in Minnesota, 180 Degrees. They have a number of different programs, but they work a lot with various community organizations to try and provide some comprehensive programming for the individuals that they work with, whether it's just basically trying to get on your feet, those fundamental foundational needs that they have, not just the career and technical education options, but how to communicate their situations with them when they're applying for a job. They do a number of different things. And I know that there are probably a lot of other organizations out there across the country that you may need to just reach out. Like Andrew was saying, you need to just go and talk to some folks and find out what it is that they do. It could be a very fun adventure. Think of it that way. You can discover all kinds of things when you take advantage of those opportunities. And I'm so glad that I've had the opportunity to meet Angela through ACTE and Dustin and Nate through some grant work that we've done. Because in Minnesota, the funding that we have for corrections and is community-based competitive grants. It is not funding that is from the Department of Corrections. We do ours as community-based. We want to get the money out to the community and partner with our institute, with a variety of institutions, not just post-secondary, to address career and technical education and other supportive services that these individuals need, youth and adults. So I just want to thank you very much for your time and for your wisdom. And I'll turn it back over to you, Megan.
Okay, well, I just want to thank all of you for such an insightful, informative webinar today. I have some great ideas to take back to our senior staff at ACTE, and we just appreciate everybody's time and effort. The panelists, Ava, who set this up as the moderator, and then also our attendees who were able to join today. And just as a reminder, we have some other webinars coming up. If you just go to our webinar page, you'll see the recording from today's session, and you'll see other opportunities to register. And this is part of a big IAED series, Inclusion, Access, Equity, and Diversity series. So every month we have similar content, different topics, but similar content. So we hope to see you at least next month on our next IAED webinar. So thank you all again, and I'll see you at soon.
Yeah. Take
Bye,
care.
everyone.